Merci Lisa. Bonjour et un grand merci de m'avoir invité à intervenir cet après-midi. Branda, diolch yn fawr, mae gwahoddiad I fod gyda chi gyd y prynhawn yma I siarad yn yr achlysur hyn. I'm delighted to be able to speak at the Wales Brittany meeting today and to have launched our wonderful programme at the Lorient Festival this year. I'm just checking the translation.
It's coming.
Coming. Okay. Okay. I hope some of you, of course, will have enjoyed some of our excellent artists during this opening weekend. I'm very pleased too that a Welshman has won this year's Tour de France, and many of you will have seen the wonderful images from Paris with Geraint Thomas draped in the Welsh flag. The round tables will focus on our cultural and linguistic links. So I'll focus my remarks on the relationship with Brittany and on Brexit, which is a major preoccupation for us at the moment. The first point I want to make, which is perhaps obvious, but I'll make it anyway, is that we are absolutely committed to maintaining and strengthening our relationships with our European friends and partners, and our relationship with Brittany is without doubt one of our strongest partnerships. Our close cultural and historical links founded on our common Celtic roots go back centuries, if not millennia. The famous Siwni Winos, a feature of life in Wales in my memory, common legends of sunken cities, and of course the links between the port of Cardiff and Ove, where the coal from Cardiff arrived for the ironworks in Prignac and further afield, and they only worked with Welsh coal. Welsh exiles, of course, like Henry Tudor, found refuge in Brittany, and a Welshman, Reverend Price from Cwmdu, produced the first Breton Bible. The list is long. Our football team was based in Brittany during the Euros. As soon as they left, we got knocked out. But quite simply, every year, artists, students, researchers, tourists, and businessmen and women travel between our nations and develop their own stories and connections. Now, our culture and heritage is part of the wider Celtic heritage that we share with all the Celtic nations, between whom there is such an evident, real, special bond. Nowhere more tangible than here, of course, at the festival in Lorient. But our first formal relationship with Brittany dates only from 2004, when my predecessor, the now sadly deceased Rhodri Morgan, signed the first agreement with the former president of the Regional Council, Jocelyn de Rohan. That agreement was not signed in Breton. It wasn't included. At the time, the Breton Regional Council didn't want it. So times have changed for the better since that time. The current French Minister for Foreign Affairs, Monsieur Le Drian, and I then recommitted to the relationship in 2011. And in January of this year, I was in Rennes to sign a renewed Memorandum of Understanding with President Chenet Girard. Now, our relationship is based on solid foundations, and I'm confident that we can thrive in the future. We will do all that we can to ensure that Brexit doesn't jeopardise our cooperation. Now, in November last year, we hosted a conference in Cardiff entitled European Cooperation Beyond Brexit, where representatives from regional governments across Europe, including Jean-Michel Le Boulanger from the Regional Council of Brittany, signed the Cardiff Declaration, an important statement of intent to work together on the challenges resulting from Brexit. At the heart of the Welsh Government's negotiations with the UK is to consider how Wales can best secure a continued positive relationship with Europe. The Welsh Government is committed to ensuring Wales remains an outward-looking and engaged player on the European stage post-Brexit. And what was clear in Cardiff was that these challenges are not unique to Wales or other nations or regions, the English regions in the UK, but they affect the whole of the EU in different ways and in different degrees. The Regional Council of Brittany and CESER, the Economic, Environmental and Social Council, were, for example, one of the first to produce an excellent analysis of what Brexit means, and their work resonates closely with our own assessment. It's also worth reminding you that the Welsh Government campaigned to remain. Now, while we regret the result of the referendum, we have to respect it, and now we have to work to secure the best possible outcome for Wales. But one thing is absolutely clear, and that is a no-deal Brexit would be a catastrophe. And we are taking every opportunity to make the case for a rational and sensible Brexit for all our sakes. In terms of what we want for the future, we're absolutely clear that access to the single market is fundamental. Over 60% of Welsh goods exports are sent to the EU, a higher proportion than the rest of the UK, and many of Wales's most productive and best paid jobs depend on that trade. The CSR's Brexit paper, for example, refers to the 50 companies in Brittany which depend on decision-making centres based in the UK, representing about 3,700 jobs here. And we're also clear that the UK should uphold the principle of freedom of movement of workers and students, but at the same time, of course, crack down on the exploitation of workers, because it has been happening, mainly because the UK government hasn't put the funds into it. And that's why we need to make sure that people aren't exploited in the future. We welcome the contribution of European workers and migrants to Welsh society and our economy, and we challenge the negative messages around immigration which have been allowed to dominate political discourse. I say to people, I know this is not the translation, but I say to people, what percentage of people in Britain are the descendants of immigrants? And the answer is 100%. Everybody is an immigrant to the island of Britain. It's simply a question of when your ancestors arrived. And that is the true answer when people talk about immigration. Now, Brittany, like Wales, strongly and rightly asserts its identity, but we both share the same values of openness to the world and to others. Our identities are not insular, based on the fear of others and of the unknown. We know these things are so damaging. Now, let me be clear. We are leaving the European Union. That does not mean, it does not mean that we are leaving Europe. We live in an increasingly interconnected world, and we can't afford to turn away from our international partners. It's vital that we preserve these relationships for the sake of our economy, our environment, and our culture, as much as for politics and diplomacy. I believe, that the EU, with the UK as a member, has played a vital role in strengthening democracy and securing peace on our continent, and most recently in buttressing our security against the insidious threats of terrorism and organised crime. And I think an unintended consequence of the UK's decision to leave the EU seems to have been to strengthen the commitment of people and institutions in other member states to the EU itself, and I welcome that. Some thought in the UK that the EU would fall apart if the UK left. That's not the case, but that's what they believed. We also believe in retaining the environmental and social rights that we've acquired as members of the EU, because we know that these rights make our common society more civilized and more progressive than many others in the developed world. And we'll vigorously oppose any attempt to move the UK away from the European social model, an approach which I believe would result in the diminution of social and environmental standards. Instead, I'd rather see the UK preserving and enhancing those standards and competing on a level playing field on the basis of our ingenuity and skills. Now, to the extent that we are able to, within our policy responsibilities, we want to continue to mirror future progressive change in the EU as it takes place. We've called on the UK to continue to participate in a range of EU programmes post-Brexit, like Erasmus, Interreg or Creative Europe, recognising we've got to pay as well, of course. If you're going to be a part of these schemes, then you've got to pay a contribution. There's a dynamic of cooperation between Breton and British partners across these programmes on marine energy, language education and culture, research and innovation, and that cooperation has to carry on. It shouldn't be called into question. For almost 2 decades, we've also been working with Brittany on how we can nurture some of the oldest languages in Europe which cohabit with two of the world's most dominant languages, and how to make our societies more sustainable and better able to adapt to climate change. We also have a long history of cooperation with the Irish Republic, our maritime neighbour, and I'm concerned about the wider implications of Brexit for Ireland. We've consistently stressed the importance of retaining a soft land border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, and we believe that the best and most rational outcome will be for the whole of the UK to remain fully aligned to both the single market and the customs union. This would protect the interests of the Welsh ports and their commercial relationship with Ireland, another key concern for the Welsh Government. The history of devolution in Wales is strongly intertwined with the European Union. During the devolution campaign in the late 90s, one of the few rallying cries which united political parties, the trades unions, employers' organisations and large parts of civil society was the need to give Wales a stronger voice in Europe. And during the nearly 20 years since devolution, I believe our institutions and the EU have done much to deliver on that promise. We moved early on to establish a presence in Brussels, where we are one floor below our Breton friends. I don't know if that tells us something. And one of the first achievements and challenges was to deliver the largest structural funds regional programme in the UK. So Brexit can't become a stumbling block to the fostering and strengthening of the Wales-Brittany relationship, which is symbolised by our common anthem, written by the Welsh bard Evan James and taken up again by Taldir in Brogos Mazadw. We are the lands of our fathers and our mothers. It was written some time ago, and we need to be gender neutral. Our anthem says all that. And despite all the setbacks we've had, we've walked side by side, and we've been able to preserve our languages and our cultures. We've come this far. We want to work together to make sure that the future is bright for both Welsh and Breton, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Trwy gael.